good, very practical, impactful intervention. In our opinion, that's a way of combining the traditional IFC partners, large corporates or local firms that are in the process of growing and expanding their operations, and we link them with smaller businesses, smaller local businesses, to really develop and increase and improve their overall operational efficiency. So value chains for us is really a way of articulating very closely large operations with the smaller local businesses, which creates opportunities to grow for revenues, for jobs, for a larger segment of the population.
There's always been a recognition in Norwegian development aid that SME development, the need to develop also small and medium-sized businesses is a key in order to develop the society as such.
Fragility, in my sense, is not a fatality. Value chains could help maintain production, maintain jobs, maintain an existing market, maintain supporting structures like financial services, capacity building services, so that when the country will come out of fragility, it finds already some existing structures able to continue and develop the country.
Much more than saying in general the private sector contributes to peace and stability or job creation, or value chains do. It is very important to understand, to get the features right of what kind of business model, what kind of value chain does contribute, and then really work on those and promote those.
Heineken is a little less than 700 people directly in Burundi. Incorporating the value chain was not something that was easy for us. It was not something that we were sure we would be able to do because in Burundi the lands are very small, so you have a lot of farmers that we had to contact to be able to create a real value chain. So we ended up finding out that there was a local sorghum, white sorghum, that was already available in Burundi. And to get to this, we hired some suppliers. So what we do is that we just issue a purchase order, and they collect and transport the sorghum for us. We guarantee a price before the season starts, so that the farmers can also know how much they can expect from their harvest, and they can also get finances to buy the seeds and to send their kids to school, or for some health issues sometimes.
I think one of the good examples in a very challenging market is the work that has been done in Guinea-Conakry, with Rio Tinto, our client there. They have done one of the probably the largest private investment in Africa over the last 2 decades in exploiting iron ore mine in eastern Guinea. We have really been working at providing an opportunity to local small businesses to become providers of goods and services to the mine. So that's it sounds quite easy and something quite easy to do, but it's very challenging. In many cases, the local businesses are not properly equipped to provide the quality of services and goods that the mine is looking for. There's a big issue in terms of certification, in terms of meeting quality and business standards. So this doesn't happen automatically.
Developing value chains in fragile and conflict-affected countries, it's more complicated, but we try to do it also because many markets are missing, and if you can develop a value chain, that might help you to get people a job, to get people an income. In a fragile country like South Sudan, because there's no capacity. There's no capacity in the public sector, but there's no capacity in the private sector, and basically also in the NGO sector, there's very little capacity. So you have to develop something basically against the odds. We are looking for opportunities to get something going and then hope that the South Sudanese say, hey, look, that's interesting. We also want to do it. And if we then find out that there are legal or other bottlenecks, then we try to overcome these binding constraints one by one.
The number one challenge that I see everywhere is to combine a very sound financial economic view on what really works from a business point of view in these countries with a very good political analysis of the political economy and the conflict dynamics. So to make sure that you do not only have a very sound, almost business-like intervention that's really supporting what works for companies, but that you do it in a way that it does not negatively affect the conflict area that you're working in.
Eventually, without developing those value chains, the chances of the companies to have a long-term social license to operate are not very high. By building capacity of local players, we ensure that even in a very fragile situation and even when conflicts erupt, we can continue operations on the ground. Even when IFC staff is not allowed to visit, is evacuated from the country. If we have local partners.
Increasingly, governments, and I think they are right to do so, if you would ask me, are putting in place local procurement policies. Foreign companies have to meet with the local regulations. So that's one thing. On the other side, it's also a question of profitability and efficiency. It's much more efficient to be able to function with local businesses that you can reach out easily, you can train them, you can follow up more easily, rather than rely on importing goods and services from Australia, France, Japan, US, China, or you name it.
Well, the first reward is that today we are reaching out to a population that we are not connected, especially with. The farmers are 90% of the Burundian population, which means that we were not reaching a large part of the population. So it is very rewarding for us that today we can also create some value for them. And we can also provide to them a beer that they can afford, and also a beer that they can be proud of, because it's 100% beer. So they can say, okay, I provided the raw material for it, and now I can also appreciate it. And also it gives me some money to send my kids to school. So it's very rewarding for us.
The first reward is why we are all doing this, is that when we work with these firms and you see how literally dozens of families can really build a good future based on producing or upscaling their production, putting their kids to school because they have earned their own money. I mean, that is what basically makes us tick. That's just, you see the results on the ground.